fantastic week. I wanted to share with you a page that we just released on the Leader Factor website. What is psychological safety? We get asked this question, I don't know how many times every day, and it's something so important to what we're doing. Before we talk about training modalities and assessment solutions, it's important that we understand the fundamental concept and that we're able to define psychological safety clearly. If you ask 10 people right now, most of the time you'll get 10 different answers. And they all center around the same thing, but we wanted to put forward and share with the world our definition of psychological safety. And it's right here. What is psychological safety? 5 words. An environment of rewarded vulnerability. That's it. That is psychological safety. When our vulnerability is rewarded, we engage, contribute meaningfully, and enter an offensive mode of performance. We give of our discretionary effort and spend our time creating value. So let me walk you pretty linearly through this page. This is a page that we encourage you to read and understand, but also a page that you can share if this question comes up in your conversations. As far as we can tell, there are 2 universally shared goals when it comes to psychological safety. Create sanctuaries of inclusion, create incubators of innovation. I have yet to meet an organization where these 2 things weren't true. That is why we're here. A little bit about the history of psychological safety. We're going to say a little bit more about this in the future, but the gist of it is safety is not just physical. There's a psychological or psychosocial component to safety, and it has to do with an employer's duty to care to the employees. And that's just the work case. Psychological safety expands much farther than just the workplace. Okay, back to vulnerability. Our vulnerability can be reported. It can be punished. What are some common acts of vulnerability? Here are a few examples: giving feedback, sharing an idea, saying I don't know, disagreeing. This is key. The way that others respond to those acts of vulnerability, whether they punish or reward them, will influence our future behavior. And then we go into a very specific example about punished vulnerability, and then a very specific example about rewarded vulnerability. What isn't psychological safety? This is an important question, and maybe more important than we've considered in the past. This is something that we're very passionate about. Psychological safety isn't just about being nice. It's not about being politically correct. It's not several things. And it's important that we understand that. We are all accountable. And it has very much to do with performance. Okay, why does psychological safety matter? What are the opportunities and what are the costs? Well, there are 2 main drivers for psychological safety that we've been able to identify. The first is social injustice. In other words, the moral force. And then we have the competitive force of market turbulence. Those 2 drivers have really put psychological safety on the map and are going to keep it there for the long haul. What happens if we don't have psychological safety? We bleed out our best talent. We fail to innovate. We develop hostile work environments and poor customer experience. We lose productivity and our quality decreases. So what is the solution to those 2 things, market turbulence and social injustice? The answer is psychological safety. We present the 4 stages of psychological safety, which is the path to inclusion and innovation, starting with inclusion, safety, then learner, then contributor, and then challenger. So what we did is we went stage by stage. We put together some videos for you about each of the stages, when you know you have it, when you don't, and what the social exchange is. Learner, safety, contributor, and challenger. Down here, we have the resources for individuals and teams. So our next webinar is going to be the end of this week, I believe, the last piece of May. And we're going to have a really interesting webinar that I'm very excited about. The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety book, if you haven't read it, we would highly encourage that. So this will take you to learn more about that. We have the online course, which is very neat. We released just recently, and we're finishing up the beta this week. So the full version will launch at the webinar. We have the 4 Stages certification, keynote, team survey, behavioral guide. This one's free. So if you're interested in downloading a list of 130 some odd behaviors to improve psychological safety, that's a good one for you. So I hope that this is helpful. I hope that this helps you understand what psychological safety is. Feel free to share this. We think it's a very important resource and we wanted to make it available to you. So remember and commit this to memory. What is psychological safety? An environment of rewarded vulnerability. Thanks.